Hello everybody. I'm hoping that this video won't be too long, but that I am hoping to cover quite a few topics, and I suppose I've made this video really to help to wake people up to what's happening in the world today, and to hopefully guide a way forward into a better way of life. And I think one of the things that we have to acknowledge is the lessons of history, and for us to remember our history. And I'm not talking just recent history, I'm talking about, back to the Celtic period, because in many ways I do feel that the battle that we face today is actually a spiritual battle as well as a physical battle. And emotions, human emotions, are caught up in both sides, and there are strong beliefs on both sides. And the difference between the sides is that one side is for truth and the other side is for lies. And a lot of the people who are supporting the lies genuinely believe those lies, and they are actually good people who are confused, and it's not their fault to be confused. And on the other side there's the people fighting for the truth, and again, not all the people fighting for the truth or who are standing on the side of truth are genuinely good people, and a lot of them are the same as the people among the liars. They just are seeking power, and they have hidden agendas behind the truth that they claim to support, and some of their hidden agendas aren't very pleasant. And I think we've seen how the philosophy of socialism that arose from Marx and Engels translated to Stalin's communism and other communist type dictatorships around the world, and I will exclude Cuba from that, because I think the Cubans did have actually managed to establish a genuinely socialist society where the ethos is for people to care for one another and to contribute, and the fact that they've struggled and are so poor is because the rest of the world has conspired to make sure that Cuba, just was never going to succeed, but actually they have succeeded. So today I'm going to be looking at law, economy, child abuse, Satanism, and light being, and also Fukushima. And that's quite a long list. But hopefully we shall get through it, and I hope it's not going to be too long. But to start with, if we start with the law, and I found this really interesting that came up on my Facebook page today. Posters calling out killer cops hit metropolitan bus stops, and there's these posters here, and I'll just scroll down and you can have a look. And they do make very valid points. And I did cover this on a couple of Facebook notes and other blogs that I wrote, which because I was very, very disturbed when it happened, and by how it was used to demonise people on benefits, and the BBC sort of invited this mass public expression of hatred towards people on benefits. And I remember in the riots they particularly focused on disabled people and their carers, and the images they focused on at the time, I remember it just looked like a person in a wheelchair and the person pushing that person, they were just trying to get from A to B, and there was rioting going on around them, but according to the BBC they were actually taking part in the riots, and there was this just mass public hatred, and in that outpour people just plain forgot that somebody, an unarmed civilian, was shot in broad daylight in London. You know, where's his right to arrest? Where's his right to trial? Innocent until proven guilty, you see. And to me, that's a serious point. You know, I don't care who the person was, what they suspected. At the end of the day, that person has a right to a lawful arrest, and then to be questioned, and then possibly to face charges in a court of law where the suspect is innocent until proven guilty. Now, that's the law that I was brought up with, you know, and that's the law that I believe in, and that's the law that most people think we're living under. And this is where a lot of the lies kick in, because, you know, a lot of the good people who genuinely believe the lies genuinely believe that cannabis is a really dangerous drug. And in fact, it's been used by humanity for over, that we know of, we've got historical evidence for 10,000 years. And so, you know, women used to use it for pain in childbirth. It used to be in every medicine until the 1930s. It was regularly given to children. It's harmless. It's less toxic than a paracetamol. And it doesn't drive people crazy. You know, you don't see hear large groups of people on marijuana all walking and shouting around the streets, and, you know, but you do when the pubs close at 11 o'clock. You hear large groups of people all shouting and down the street. And the difference between alcohol and marijuana, cannabis, is that cannabis actually opens your brain and it makes you aware. And it does make you aware of yourself as well, and all your paranoias and fears and all your hopes and all your dreams. All you suddenly can see what is inside your own head. And a lot of people don't want to see what's inside their own head because they're afraid. But really, what's inside your own head, it can't harm you, because you are in control of your own mind. It's your mind. And I think that's where the law actually begins, is in people's right to have their own mind, their freedom to think and to ask questions and to be respectful, because you can't have freedom where there's no respect. And that is another thing that we need to understand, and that's what the law is all about, is actually ensuring a level of respect, that we live within a level of respect in our societies, that there's procedures and laws and ways of going about things to deal calmly with negativity, and to accept that, yes, emotions do run high and people do get hurt, and the law is there to bring stability and balance and to help people to live a peaceful life, so that, you know, in a humane society, in a lawful society, everybody should be able to leave their front doors unlocked, because nobody's going to come in, because people respect one another's privacy. And the kind of society where law starts to break down is when you start having severe deprivation, and people are living you've got a huge gap between the rich and the poor. And the gap has really just, it's so huge now, it's a chasm. And the thing is that when people have no money in a society that just everything runs on money, you can't do anything if you've got no money. You can't eat. So, what are people going to do when they have no money? When you've got people who are being sanctioned because they've turned up 5 minutes late to sign on, and now they're not going to have any money for 3 weeks, and the job centre suggests they go and find a job. But we know there are no jobs. The jobs are being axed. 50% public services jobs cut. And that's a serious amount of money to be removed from the British economy, the domestic British economy, because all those public service workers were earning a wage, and that wage, most of it was being spent in Britain on things that small businesses provide to people, like hairdressing, clothes, nails, just so many things, holidays, and all the businesses are closing down. And even benefits, all the people on disability, whatever money they were getting, the majority of it was being spent in Britain, in British shops, British businesses. It was part of the local economies. So when the government comes in and takes 30% of the disabled people's income in every single city, and that's just disabled people, and that's what they've done. Make no mistake about that, that is what they've done. And people have died, people have become sick because of it, people have committed suicide. It's really been a dreadful, dreadful, horrendous attack on the people of Britain, the most vulnerable people of Britain. Because we had a level of law that was compassionate to people's needs, and to respect that if somebody's sick and ill, sometimes, no matter how sick or ill they are, sometimes the type of illnesses that people have, it takes them all the time just to be able to get through each day. And regardless of what anybody says, those people do contribute to society. The people who are unemployed, the people who are disabled and sick, they still help each other. They still help people, you know. They take part, they do things for other people. And I know that I've worked with disabled people. I am actually myself a carer. And I know that I've witnessed it, that the disabled people, they do contribute. They use whatever skills they have freely to help people. But they couldn't commit to a full-time job. And why should they? When there's able-bodied people who need jobs. So how can, in a competitive job market, how can disabled people compete with able-bodied people? And the government bringing in legislation, oh, you know, any business that employs so many disabled people gets this, that, the other. That's no way to deal with the problem. Because what about the able-bodied people? Why should they be discriminated against because they're not disabled? It's just ridiculous. But that's the kind of ridiculous laws and legislation. They're not laws, they're acts of Parliament. And really, we have not been consulted about most of these laws and these legislations. And that they've left the children of Britain hungry. There's too many families living below the poverty line. And I know a lot of people, you know, they say, oh, people in Britain, they don't know what poverty is, blah, blah, blah. But it's all relative, isn't it, to where you're living, to what the majority are having to live with, to the stark differences, to being kept like just a rabbit in a cage, living on a few pounds and pennies every day, worrying about how to pay your bills. Whether you're working or not, a lot of the families who are using food banks now, they are working, and they're earning two people less than £15,000 a year, and they're raising children on that. And so it's like people are just saying, well, you know, that's the economy, and that's how it is, you know, that's how it has to be. It has to be like that, because we need this system and we need this economy. But if the economy isn't serving the law, and the law doesn't exist because it's been ignored, then it's not an economy really, is it? It's just a robbery with bits of paper and a load of police to say, yeah, these bits of paper are real and you're going to believe it, and if you don't, we're going to put you in jail, or we might just shoot you. So we've got, you know, just massive amounts of child abuse going on from the past that's all come, you know, just come to light now. And as you can see, with this headline, you know, MPs, judges, police, actors and clergy were protected. You know, include teachers, doctors, nurses, all kinds of people involved in it. And we do have to understand now and step out of these dividing lines, that this grid network that we've lived in, and that a lot of people have lived in unquestioningly for so long, where, you know, it's race against race, religion against religion, class against class, it's anti-this and anti-that, you know. But we don't need these antis. What we just need is to understand that there is a real divide, and all these other little divides are just there for a distraction, because they want to distract us from the real divides. Because within all the divides that they impose, the ruling consciousness, which is the people with most money, within those divides, that all the people who are part of the divide between truth and lies, all of them operate equally and benefit equally within those divides, within their false divides that they distract us with, and by us fighting against them, you know, we still ultimately serve their purposes. And that's why, you know, socialism becomes Stalinist communism, or Nazi Germany, or today Nazi Britain, because we are living, that's what we're heading towards, Nazi Britain. And people don't like Nazis. Fascism is what it is, and people don't like fascism. And why? Because fascism recognises no humane, compassionate law. And this humane, compassionate law is supposed to come from God. That's why Queen Elizabeth, when she took her coronation oath, she swore her coronation oath before God, and she vowed to uphold the laws of God above the laws of men. And the laws of men are the Parliament's laws, which are made without consulting the British public. And we're supposed to be a democracy. So, you know, but we have these laws imposed on us as if the whole population actually agrees with it. And Parliament does things in our name as if the whole of the population agrees with it. And that, you see, it's what you've got is a cardboard cutout of democracy, haven't you? It says democracy here, come and put your votes, here's the people that we've chosen for you to choose from, and that's it. That's as far as it goes, because after that they do what we tell them to do, what the money tells them to do, and the people who control the money. And the police are going to serve all of them. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, police are human beings, and they are starting to realise as well, they're not stupid. There's corrupt police, but there are a lot of really, really good police, and they do understand what is going on. So, when it comes to child abuse investigations, you can guarantee that a lot of them are just going to be hidden away, because it involves too many high up people. And the thing is that the upper classes then start to lose absolute credibility before the public, because the public they sort of just silently tolerate these people living above their heads, living their commercial TV type lives where money is no issue, and they're all socially revered, and they have lovely friends who are all socially revered, and they all have such a lovely time. Life is so nice for those people, and all the little people cleaning the streets, and running the buses, driving the tube trains, all of that. It just goes on like some sort of little magic thing around them, and they never really get to see the real suffering behind the facade, because it is a facade. It's not. None of our societies and have just been naturally made. They've been. People have thought about it. Every building was a thought in somebody's head, and the more money and power that person had and influence, then the more real their thoughts became. So when we look at our buildings and our cities, we're looking at people's thoughts and what has influenced those thoughts. And our society reflects those thoughts. And when you've got a core of corruption at work in society, like, for example, the paedophile agendas, then that is an alien consciousness, because it's alien to our culture of being a law-abiding nation, a Christian law-abiding nation. And anything that's an alien consciousness, an alien force, is also a criminal force. And that criminal force becomes a treasonous force when it's controlling our police, our government, and our judiciary, courts, social workers, teachers, when it's involving powerful people who've got power over the public. And it is an insidious, it's an internal tyranny. And it gets worse than just the people who are committing the abuse, who are part of the abuse. There's the people who support them, who profit from it, and who they profit not just from satisfying their depraved desires. They profit from it through what they get, how they can manipulate people in power through blackmail. Or people who aren't involved are just threatened because of the power that the paedophiles have with police and other people. And a lot of people are threatened into silence or into doing things. And so when you've got that level of corruption at work, you can quickly understand how it comes to the point where, our British Parliament, our supposedly lawful British Parliament, has sanctioned the use of depleted uranium weapons to be used in Iraq. on the understanding that those weapons had been through the legally required Geneva Convention review to prove that they were safe to be used in civilian areas. And then 10 years later, a report's presented to Parliament from an international study that's explaining how the depleted uranium fallout from the weapons used in Iraq are actually having a worse effect on the population of Iraq than the fallout from both the atomic weapons dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And so a Labour MP, she asked the Ministry of Defence to show her the review that had been done. And the Ministry of Defence had to report back that they didn't have it, because it didn't exist. And he apologised, saying, you know, I did report to Parliament in genuine good faith that there had been such a review, but actually there hadn't, so I'm very sorry. And that was it. And that was reported in 2011. And I haven't got the link up here at the moment. I've just realised it's one that I forgot to put up. But I will leave you the link to that story. And it was reported in the British press. I think I could only find one newspaper story of it, and that was in 2011. At the time the London riots were happening. So it gets very, very serious, and it's in, you know, it gets to the point where the abuse becomes international, because Britain is a powerful country with a lot of influence in the world. And it's really serious that Britain as a population now, we are held responsible for the actions of our government because as a democracy they're supposed to be working on our behalf, and if we're not happy with what they're doing, that's up to us to let them know. And we haven't let them know. And we haven't let them know because the media don't let us know what's going on. And this artist taxi driver, and I do recommend you watch his videos, he does get quite angry and swears a lot, and I don't blame him, you know, and I do find it heartening to hear him because he's expressing real emotion about real things that's happening in the real world. And this particular video, which I'll leave you the link for, says corporate media the enemy of the people, and it's true. They have behaved as an enemy of the people because, again, they have not served the law, and they twist things and they ignore important news. Now that was an important news item, that the Ministry of Defence had lied to Parliament. And as a result of that lie, tens of thousands of people and children are suffering and dying in Iraq because of the depleted uranium fallout. And, you know, the newspaper headlines should have been, they should have been all over the place with that one, shouldn't they? When you think that Britain, we were told by Tony Blair that we were entering Iraq in order to liberate the people and to protect the world from weapons of mass destruction. Well, you know, I looked through the list of the weapons of mass destruction that Iraq had, and I didn't find depleted uranium among them. And depleted uranium has a half-life, and that's a half-life of 4.5 billion years. And that's something to think about, that Britain is responsible for that. And the media, most of the people don't know about it because the media don't tell you, and by the time we find out, the job's already been done. So nobody could campaign to Parliament and say, no, we don't want you to use depleted uranium, you're not allowed to sanction it. We want to see the review before you sanction it. Show us the review. But because there was no review, so nobody in the public got to know about it. Instead, it just got quickly passed through Parliament. And half the MPs, they're not awake. They're just plodding along in their officially duties, signing this bit of paper, doing that, going here, there, attending this interview, that interview, or doing nothing other than eating out, whining and dining. And they don't pay attention. It took 10 years for a Labour MP, one Labour MP, to ask the MOD, to the Ministry of Defence, can we see the review for the depleted uraniums? Can we see it, please? And then it finds out, it doesn't exist, but it's been used, because that was 10 years ago. So it's too late now, but nobody facing any criminal charges for criminal negligence and perjury and crimes against humanity and using weapons of mass destruction. Now they're serious things, they are serious things, and I am explaining today that they are all related to having the kind of people in power who take pleasure from abusing children. They take pleasure from it. And they do actually believe that there's too many people. But God said, go forth and multiply. And, the universe didn't say that to humanity because it wanted to suddenly kill us all off in a mass sacrifice. We're here today, the amount of people on this earth today, we are needed. We are needed. Everybody is needed. Every hand that we can get, we're going to need to save the life of our planet, because it is on the brink. We're on the brink. And that brings me to Fukushima, which, this is Kevin Blanch's video. And, he has done an amazing job. Him and Dana, who has featured on another video that I did. And there's so many other people as well who've just been committed to Fukushima from the start. And we all knew how bad it was from the start. We were under no illusions about what the press was coming out and what the reality of the facts, those who took time or had time to investigate further than what the media presented. And it's really serious, and I'll leave you the link to Kevin Blanch's video underneath. But basically the Pacific Ocean is dying, and there's just mass deaths. There's no life being seen along the coast of Fukushima, along the coast of the Californian coast and along other coastlines of America. People are noticing, and tens and thousands of sea lions starving have been turning up, covered in lesions, cuts, and it's just a really terrible situation, and nobody's doing anything about it. And the world media is sort of just ignoring it because nobody wants to say anything against nuclear power, because that is a massive, major force. And again, people like David Attenborough, who supports a human cull, he thinks there's too many people. He would blame Fukushima on the general public. He would blame it on humanity. And this is again where I come back to the law, because at the end of the day, humanity had a law that has been ignored by the corporations because they want to make their money, because they want to control people with it. And they want to dictate to life what they want, their ambitions, their desires, their thoughts they want to make into reality, even though they're illegal. And Fukushima is an abomination of human technology and progress. It is an abomination. Nuclear power itself is an abomination on this planet. It's disgusting. And it hasn't been chosen by we the people. In fact, we the people, the humanity itself, the majority of humanity, if you ask them, they don't like nuclear power. They would rather not have it in its present form, because there are ways of utilising nuclear power without it being as terribly, horrifically deadly and dangerous as this way. But the way that they chose to go with is the way that makes nuclear weapons, because you can't make a nuclear bomb unless you've got a nuclear reactor. So, the whole idea of it them being there to provide cheap energy, that's just it's an absolute lie, because there's nothing cheap about them at all. And none of them are insured. There's no insurance company on this earth will insure a nuclear power station, because they say it's too risky. And that, again, it just makes a mockery of the laws that say everybody's got to have a licence to drive a car. But look at the damage that gets caused when a nuclear power station, uninsured, legally permitted to be uninsured, when it has an accident. And the accident itself was through sheer negligence, because they refused to take advice from international nuclear watchdogs who advised TEPCO 10 years ago to rebuild the natural sea wall that they demolished to build the plant. And TEPCO didn't want to spend any money, and it refused. And their justification for that refusal was that if they started building a sea wall, it would alarm the Fukushima residents. Well, I'm sure the Fukushima residents are now very, very, very alarmed. Everybody has been very alarmed. The world is very alarmed. And it's a continual source of pain and upset to those of us who understand what's happening, and the suffering that is happening in the Pacific Ocean, and to the life and people of Japan, and to the people of the rest of the world, because the radiation spreads. But most of it is going directly into the sea. And they have got no way, they do not know how to deal with it. And again, such a situation, that's got nothing to do with humanity. Humanity did not ask for Fukushima. We did not ask for nuclear power. Humanity did not create it. It was created by a few money men and their warmongers and their scientists. It had nothing to do with humanity. And humanity did not want nuclear power. So, David Attenborough, please stop blaming humanity for what a handful of people are doing on this planet, in our name, without our consent, and who are actually enslaved everybody to their horrible ambitions. Because if money is not serving the law, it is an illegal thing. It's an illegal power. And I do remember I once had a dream about money, and somebody was paying for me to get into somewhere, and they were paying with a £5 note because I didn't have any money. And as they handed the £5 note over, I noticed that where it said I promised to pay the bearer, it said I promised to lie for you, to die for you, to kill, steal and cheat for you. That's what it said. And that was in a dream. And I woke up and I thought, well, that was quite profound, because that is actually what people are prepared to do for money. And why? Because money buys, it realises their dreams, it realises their fantasies, their hopes, their ambitions. And some people have good dreams, good ambitions, good hopes, and other people have bad dreams, bad ambitions, bad hopes. And there is no denying the fact that the people with money most favour the more negative of the consciousness. It's a negative consciousness, because it's a criminal consciousness, and that's how they've managed to get all the money and are now using it to control nations. So, we get to the point where we are actually not living in any kind of we're living in a dualistic society, and people are actually aware of it now. We are aware of the fact that there's one law for us and no law for the rich. The rich just do what they like. Bankers gamble all our money away and then ask the government for a bailout, and the government says, yeah, the public will bail you out, but we don't get asked about it. And then we're told, oh, you've borrowed all this money to bail your criminal banks out, and now you've got to pay £1 billion a week debt. Yes, that's what we're paying in interest on the £1.27 trillion bailout loans for Britain's criminal banks. So you're going to pay that at £1 billion a week. Your kids are going to go hungry. You're going to lose your jobs. You're going to lose your public services. You're going to suffer austerity. Your hospitals are going. Everything's going. We're moving back to Victorian Britain. Victorian Britain. And that's what they've said, openly said. They want us to go back to Victorian Britain. And that was not a nice life, and it was mostly orphanages and workhouses with the predominant feature for 80% of the population of Britain. Or slave conditions in so-called jobs, but it was just slavery. Because the idea is, and that's what the people after World War II fought for, when they came back, they said they wanted a living wage, a wage that was going to pay for their rent and their bills, and so they lived a comfortable level of life, a humane, decent standard of living. And people aren't, and now it's as if the whole of our government and society media is supporting this idea that no, people shouldn't think that they've got a right to a decent standard of living, and actually they've got no rights to say how they feel, and they don't need to consult us about decisions that they're making in our name, and that we as a nation are then responsible for, like bailing out the banks. And now we're responsible for paying that debt off, the people of Britain. And just the interest is £1 billion a week. But meanwhile, the banks themselves, they don't have to pay us any interest on their bailout loans. So how does that work? The banks all fail because they've made criminal decisions. They've behaved criminally, and we've got absolute concrete proof of that. There's no denying of it. They've behaved criminally, and so we have to borrow all this money to bail them out. without our consent or asking, oh yeah, well, and you're going to pay this, aren't you? Oh, and you'll pay the interest, won't you? Because they can't afford to pay the interest, but you can, can't you? You don't mind going without your benefits or your local library or your local swimming pool, do you? You don't mind your kids not having a new coat this year and cutting out your holidays, sitting a bit, shivering a bit in your council flat or your home that you're struggling to pay the mortgage, and actually the bank's just waiting to get that back up off you, isn't it? Excuse me, that is not a democracy. And that's illegal. It's theft. It's theft. Of course it's theft. It's a massive swindle. And it's been done right in front of our eyes. And with the police all standing there in front of them saying, yeah, this is the law. No, it is not the bloody law. That is not the law. And so, I bring you now because, as you know, I have been doing covering the Hampstead case because, it was absolutely shocking and disgusting that those children's allegations were not immediately investigated, that the police did not immediately, that those children made them allegations, go straight and investigate before any time could pass. Because the allegations of serious sexual abuse, child trafficking, child murder, that's what, and the making of child pornography, that's what the allegations amounted to, all committed by teachers, social workers, CAF officers, even police, and local members of the community, and even parents of 20 special children who were singled out in a school in Hampstead, Christchurch school, and even a church was involved, and the clerics of the church, and a nurse, the school nurse, was involved, according to the children's allegations. And in law, when you've got two witnesses that give corroborating statements, which those children did, and very detailed statements as well, that is double evidence, because one witness statement is evidence, two witness statement, double evidence. And according to EU law, the emphasis in belief goes to the witness when it to the child witnesses when it comes to reporting child abuse, because it has to be understood the levels of fear and suffering that they've had to overcome in order to disclose. So the police should have been there straight away, and they weren't. They went having a sniff around the church 8 days later. Well, considering police are involved as the members of the accused, and the amount of connections that people in positions of public authority have with each other, they're actually in the police station, they know the kids, oh, so-and-so, yeah, them kids, they're talking, let the school know, you better hide all the evidence. Sorry, please, you can't be ignorant of that fact, can you? You can't be ignorant. We don't pay the police to be ignorant of possibilities, and not when it comes to child abuse, to that level of child abuse as well. Very serious allegations, and they did involve murder of babies. So again, straight away get down there. And we've all seen those police car chases, haven't we? Where somebody commits a bit of a traffic violation, all suddenly police are chasing, all suddenly the person don't want to be caught, all suddenly they put lives at risk speeding up and down the motorways, killing children on council estates. It's happened. Chasing after somebody in a car. Give us that swift action when a child reports abuse. Get down there straight away, especially at that level. Especially at that level. The police officer who took the allegations should have been, straight spot on, right, we get down there straight away. Will you just go and check this out? And then, if the children's story was true or false, they would have found out straight away, because it would have been a real surprise visit. nobody would have had time to hide any evidence, and it would have all, nobody in the public probably would have ever found out about it, because it would have all been covered up, like they have done. But you know that saying, give them enough rope. So they took their rope, didn't they? They took their time. They gave time for the people to remove stuff, so by the time the police did turn up at the church, and that's the only thing they did, turn up at the church and have a sniff round and not find stuff where they were told stuff was kept. And then next thing, calf-calves, because the children got taken off the mum and given to calf-calves, who were among the alleged abusers. Oh, suddenly the children, 5 days later, retracted their allegations. And then, oh, that's it, case closed, so we'll just move on from there, and we don't want to go into all that, do we? Just, imagine if it was true. What's that saying about what's going on in Britain? Because that won't be the only place if it is. And, these people, and myself included, we've all contributed to giving our witness statement as Mackenzie friends, and also a competent authority in this case, because the public is actually a competent authority, a legally recognised competent authority in this case, because according to EU law, we are now the recognised competent authority, because we're the only authority that the last authority that the mother and her council and supporters have turned to ask for help. Because the police wouldn't do anything, nobody would do anything, and children do remain at risk because there is reasonable evidence for suspicion, for raised suspicion, and according to EU law, those suspicions they are intolerable. We're not supposed to tolerate those suspicions. We're supposed to investigate and put those suspicions at rest. We have to be absolutely sure that no children are actually suffering abuse, that no child trafficking is going on. That's what the law is supposed to do. It's not supposed to say, oh, satanic abuse, oh, go away, it doesn't happen. It's a fantasy, which is what Judge Paul Fleece said. And all these basically, and I'll leave you the link and I advise you to go through them. I mean, basically her judgment is just ripped apart. The summary on which she's published, so that she's based her judgment, actually proves that she's totally ignorant of even the facts that she's based her judgment on. Because the facts that she has based her judgment on, that she's presented in her written summary, actually prove the opposite of what she's saying. And that's how serious it is when you've got no law and you just get a woman in a wig who we're told is a judge, and she hasn't even got the professional ability to look at the evidence herself and to see through and to actually stand by the law, to actually use the law. And she didn't. She ignored the law in making her judgment. She ignored the law. And again, that does amount to a level of internal tyranny, treason. Because what you've got is an illegal judgment. It's not based on any facts. It's not based on any truth. It's ignorant of fact, probability and possibility. There's no motive or intent presented for a crime, and yet 2 people have been judged. The people who've reported abuse of the children have been judged as child abusers. And the people who were originally the alleged abusers have all been exonerated, and the children have been have been given to those people. And when you look at the evidence, and you see, the father's history of violence. And again, I'll leave you this video up, and these friends who've been helping with these videos, and they've been trying to find as much evidence as they can online that might support the children's stories. And I must say, the coincidences are just building and building and building. And it does look like there is quite a wide network of people who gather to abuse children and kill children. And Satanism might seem as if it's, something from a horror movie, and you look at all these pictures of the world leaders all appearing as a satanic cult, and you just think, it isn't true. But on many levels it is true, because that is what is going on. They are killing children and having fun. And Africa, the Western world has just silently tolerated Africa, the suffering of Africa. And that's just one example, because there's not just Africa. But the suffering of the African people, and everybody, let's all give some money on Red Nose Day. And, because it's a poor country, it's such a poor country, it needs our charity. That is the most, that's a disgusting lie. Africa is the richest nation on this planet. The resources that Africa's got and that it's had. The people should be living in luxury. They should have everything they need. Africa should be like a paradise. But no, instead, you've just got little islands of paradise among severe deprivation and poverty and war and suffering and all the things that they inflict on people to keep them divided, to keep them from realising the one divide between the lawful and the lawless. And we don't want people using the truth. There are people who use the truth to promote lawlessness. Whatever truth that they can find. And there's many truths in this world, but at the end of the day, the law supports compassion. And compassion is intelligence. Because people who've got no compassion, they've got no intelligence. They might pass a university degree. They might be a doctor or a professor. But they're not intelligent people, because they're incapable of empathy. And to have empathy, you've got to have the ability to think outside yourself and to connect with another living creature or human being or even a plant, to care. That is an intellectual ability, that's an intellectual strength. And people who haven't got that strength are weak people. They're very weak. And that's why they use violence, and they're paranoid. They're afraid, and they infect other people with their paranoia and their fears, and they do have, one of the symptoms of the lawless psychology is sadism, and they actually enjoy inflicting pain. And the more innocent and vulnerable, the more they enjoy that pain. And these are facts of humanity. And the thing is that when people want to abuse children and kill them and eat them, as is alleged was happening in Hampstead, then of course they're going to use something like a satanic cult as a backdrop to that. It's all part of the game, isn't it? And then they know damn well that if anybody went and spoke about it, nobody's going to believe them. Because, that's what, satanic abuse? Oh, no, what, eating babies? No. They knew, and the judge powerfully used that as well. At no point in her judgment did she say, call the crimes for what they were: child sexual abuse, child trafficking, child pornography, child murder. Instead, she just said it as the children said it, as Satanism. But it's not Satanism, is it? It's child murder. It's like, calling something like fascism, as if it's a choice that people can make, a political choice. No, fascism is madness, and it's not a choice. It's an imposition by a mad person who thinks they have a right to ignore everybody's human rights and the law. So, fascism is not a lawful choice. And Satanism is lawlessness. That's what it is. I don't care what they call it. It's lawlessness. And we need to lose the intimidation factor of, dark spirits and all that. Yeah, there are dark spirits, but, light cuts through the dark, and so we've got nothing to be afraid of if you stand by the law, because the light of life is with the law, because the law is what creates everything. That's why we live in a lawful universe that operates on laws of physics. And the only things that are free in this universe is quantum energy. And quantum energy is in every cell of our bodies, and quantum energy powers the human thoughts. Quantum energy is our light being, and it lives inside our bodies, and it does not die when our bodies die. And quantum energy is a physically proven fact. They haven't spent all those billions on their hydronic whatever it is, the collider for the quantum particles, for no reason, because those particles are real. They do exist, and they do. We do leave with those. That quantum energy is the essence of our being, and that's why when quantum energy inhabits the human host in our physical form, then quantum energy does need to abide by law. It can't be a free thing like it is in the open universe, where quantum energy it passes everything, the concept of time. There's no gravity. Quantum energy is absolutely free and spontaneous. But within the biological, physical form, it needs to operate according to law. And so animals, they have their instincts that are their law, and they are born into those instincts, and nature provides for those instincts because the animals are so close to nature. They're symbiotic with it. But we're here to care for nature, so we've been given a level of freedom, so we can think beyond nature's instincts. So we have our instincts, and the idea is that we have to tame our instincts, to tame nature, and to tame our instincts. And law is there to help that process, so that we live lawfully and compassionately, and then we can enjoy life more, and children are born happier, and people are born happier, and that makes positivity breeds positivity, and negativity breeds negativity. And that's not to say talking about negative things is negative, or deciding only to talk about positive things is positive. It can be a very negative thing to focus only on the positive when there's serious negative things happening. And it can be equally a very positive thing to focus on negative things, in order so we can actually pull some rights out of all the wrongs that we see, that we can actually, sometimes it takes knowing what we don't want to know, to know, yes, absolutely, that is what we need, when we know what we don't need. And we don't need this imbalanced society where, you know, children are being taken off parents to sustain private corporations who make profits. You know, what's been going on in the privatised British family courts, which are earning profits for private corporations of childcare, the courts themselves, and other privatised childcare authorities, like people who, you know, the children's homes and things, which are run by corporations. You know, we've got G4S running children's homes in Britain now. That's an international corporation, security corporation. And so you've got, basically, they've engineered the system so they're trafficking children to make money, and they're making money out of it. It's a £2.4 billion industry in Britain. That's a lot of money, and a lot of people are earning money out of that. Councils get £500,000 gifts, like rewards for meeting their adoption targets. And most of the children are illegally adopted without the parents' consent, and from parents who actually have never harmed a child. They've just been told that they're a future emotional risk. And other countries now, you know, are campaigning to get their children back. And still Britain is just, we're not taking any notice, business is going on as normal. And it isn't going on as normal, is it? Because it's all corrupt. And I'm going to leave you this link as well. Dial M for Mason, ex-Royal Air Force, Gordon Bowden interview. And I really do recommend that you listen to this man. He's done a lot of research, and he's been trying to get public attention for years and years, and he's gone to all the authorities, and he's got absolute hard evidence that proves that, you know, Cameron and Bush and so many of them have been involved in serious levels of economic, financial crime and fraud. And, you know, this really should have been on the BBC massive major programme. Again, it should have been splashed all over the news headlines. But instead, no, you know, we get this banal media going on about it's, you know, they have some headlines now and again. They certainly didn't waste any time demonising, you know, the mother of the children, the abused children, because now they had a court judgment to back them up, and that's what's most disgusting. It was like the judge just threw the mother and her partner to the wolves. You know, just said, "Yeah, go on, go and have a chew on that." Demonize, you know, right? Newspaper reports about this horrible woman who's now been judged guilty for abusing her children, when there's no evidence for it. The mother wasn't even there, and in fact it was an illegal, unlawful judgment according to British and EU law. And it's the lack of those laws that allow for what Gordon Bowden explained, what is explained in this interview, which is a radio podcast. So, what hope is there for us? You know, I mean, this man, I'll just play you a little bit, you know, and to me, he is an example of the British police. That to me is what I feel most of the British police are really right, decent people who, they're not stupid, and they're savvy, they're awake, they're aware, and they're very, very restricted. They're so restricted in doing their jobs. And this is what he has to say on the Hampstead case.
As a former police officer of 20 years, I had the opportunity of actually sitting with a mother in this case for 3 hours. I can absolutely tell you, with my experience of interrogation over a 20-year period, as a former detective sergeant, she was speaking 110% truth. I know there's been no investigation, been no proper police statement taken from this woman because of the way she's been harassed. I also know that we have child abuse in this country to epidemic levels. I was on Saturday sitting with a former MP from the Home Office who categorically stated to me that we've got now about 1 in 10 children being abused. And we have a police force that's in denial, and it's not you. I know that. It comes from senior levels.
There you go. It comes from senior level. So this is something that affects everybody. It affects all the people of Britain, every class, every culture. And as we know, it crosses every culture, every religion, every class. There is no divides. There is the people who enjoy abusing children, and there are the people who actually love children and respect children and just want the best for children. And I think we've reached the point now where we do need to stand up and be counted. And there's this mass protest. It's happening next week on the 11th of April at 10 a.m. And we are asking the public, all members of the public, to join us and to speak out for our children. We will be a voice for our damaged children, abused by paedophiles, abused by our government. Now it's our time to speak. We are the voices for children. And what we do have to be the voice for our children, because they can't speak for themselves. And, whether people believe that the abuse is as bad as it is, or they think it's as important, at the end of the day, our children are going to have to grow up in this society, and they are going to be burdened with a huge debt that has been dumped on them by the kind of people that do support paedophiles and do enjoy paedophilia. They enjoy looking at images of children who are being abused. And that's a seriously sick psychology to be in any power. It should not be in any power. And if there is any suspicion, and we've got more than suspicion, haven't we? We've got absolute solid evidence. Solid evidence. Rotherham Council, Sheffield Council, Rotherham Police, Sheffield Police, Nottingham Council and Police, London Council and Police, Liverpool. It goes on, all over the country. It's been going on. And the victims from the past are now speaking out, because in the past they were ignored. All them children who complained about Jimmy Savile. Oh, Jimmy Savile wouldn't do that. Oh, but now we find out he did. And it's the same for those Hampstead children, isn't it? Oh, there's no such thing as satanic child. And 10 years later, the kids are there saying, grown up saying, yeah, we did actually go through that. And we don't want to keep living through these crimes in every generation. There comes a time, that's why law is actually established to stop this type of attack, because it is an attack on the British consciousness. And it's bringing people down. because it's very hard to recover from the levels of betrayal and horror, the fear, just everything that's connected with the abuse. The lack of trust, the confusion. It really messes it, not just physically, it messes a child's psychology. They shouldn't be burdened with these things. And for a society to keep it all secret and claim that that is to protect the child, that, you know, it's a shame on the child and a danger to the child for the public to see the face of its society's abused children. No, it is not. You know, are we so weak that we can't look at the face of a child and listen to a child talk about what they've had to suffer? Is that how weak we are? And we think we're protecting the children by keeping them hidden and quiet and secret, so they can grow up in that atmosphere of being secret and somehow dirty and dangerous. They can't talk about it. Every abuser uses secrecy. It's our little secret. Well, do you know, our little secret, it's no longer little, and it's not a secret. But what is a secret still is the fact that there's more to this life than people just trying to work out ways to make money. And this is Ubuntu UK, and Ubuntu was started by Michael Tellinger in South Africa, and he developed a contributionism type plan, social plan, and then realised that it fitted actually perfectly with Ubuntu, which is an ancient South African way of life. And a lot of people who've grown up in this system of money and things, it's like, oh, it'd never work, and no money. But actually it does work, and that is how life worked for a very, very long time. Pre-Roman times, the Celtic societies, everybody worked on a contributionism level. There was no money as such. Notches on sticks, you know, people swapping this and that. Everybody worked. And by the time we got to Celtic Christian societies, you know, we had it was the duty of the abbess, because every Christian abbey, most of them were ruled by an abbess, and it was her duty, her Christian duty, to go around her local community and see where needs were needed, and she would make sure that resources would pass through to people that needed them most if people were ill or sick, you know. And so people did live on that level, and in that kind of society everybody's valuable. And in the Celtic societies and the later Celtic Christian societies, children were respected, given the same social respect as was given to a priest. And we do have to realise that all of that disappeared when Rome started to get its power back, and by the time it had usurped Christianity and turned it into something evil to persecute women with, and that's what it did. It came and smashed down, basically just got rid of the Celtic Christian churches and their abbesses, and women were no longer ever allowed to represent God. You know, that was considered an abomination to represent God for a woman, because women were evil, and they were second-class citizens, and they were daughters of Eve, and all their children were born in sin, and they needed to be beaten. Spare the rod, ruin the child, they said. But they didn't understand, because the rod is the law. And spare the law, and you do ruin the children. You bring ruin to the children where there's no law. So you see how a misunderstanding made by a few rich people 1,000 years ago, where they think, they've got to beat children with sticks because they're so evil. When if actually no, the children are absolutely pure and innocent, and the people you need to beat with sticks are the people who are trying to harm them, who want to ruin them, who don't live by the law. Spare the law, ruin the child. And that's what's been happening in Britain on every level, ruining the children, not respecting children's needs. It's all right for the government to say, we're going to take away 30% of benefits, we're going to cut wages by 30%, everything's being cut by 30%, but meanwhile you're going to pay 30% extra for everything as well. And then they know damn well they're leaving children in poverty. But we can just ignore that, can't we? No, we can't ignore it. And I've lived 52 years on this planet, and I was 17 by the time I finally managed to get away from abuse that I'd suffered all my life until then. And I've really, really had to, struggle to stay sane and consciousness in this society, because it's just so bad. But all the time I was hoping and that things were going to get better, and that people, were going to learn and grow up and start to see reason and sense. But instead, it's just the nonsense has become incredible. It's incredible. I find it incredible. It is incredible to believe, and the horror after horror after horror. And why, when there's so many good things that have happened, good, fantastic knowledge that's come available through quantum physics, like I say, proving the existence of our soul. That is, we are universal beings. We did not create ourselves. We were created by the universe. And so people say, we were created by aliens. It doesn't matter. They were created by the universe. Or are we going to say an alien created the universe? Who created the alien then? I'm sorry, you have to accept that no matter what life form lives in this universe, we are all the creation of the universe. And the universe just is perfect. And universal law of abundance in compassion is perfect. And it does, when we follow it, provide us with a perfect life and way of being. And it leads us to a world where, anybody who commits a crime, there's no punishment for crimes. People who commit crimes are understood to be suffering from some kind of mental illness or some problem. And it's dealt with. Or sometimes people do go crazy and they need to be locked away to protect themselves and other people. But we need to lose this society where we're all judging each other. Oh, you look like this. Oh, you look like that. Oh, you're rubbish. You're good. You're fantastic. All this judgment going on. We are all the same quantum energy. Absolutely, every one of us. We're the same quantum energy. We're equal. And we're all shining, beautiful, bright inside. It doesn't matter how old you are, that's just your body. You are inside a child of this universe. Humanity is a child in its child form, because we've only been here in our consciousness. So we are a child, and we're about to grow up into the next stage of our evolution, which is a psychological evolution, and that is eradicating the concept of death as the end. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as death. There's just transition. Everything transcends from one thing to another, to another, to another. And we can't deny that what we're learning through quantum physics now is actually absolutely on a par, with what the ancients have always known. And they've always said that we've had a soul that transcends death and is reborn into life after life, or can transcend to a quantum paradise, which is, because we know that there are other dimensions within quantum reality. And since we know that the quantum energy itself created everything physical in the universe, there is a quantum hard-like reality within the quantum dimensions, where everything is just as real as it is in the physical reality that we're in now. And everybody who's had a dream, a lucid dream, knows that, because you've sat and you've stood in your dream and you've realised everything's absolutely real, but you're asleep, but everything's real. You can touch things, you can smell things. And, I've had such a dream, and you wake up and it's like, wow, what is really real? And I have actually witnessed a light being, which I've written about and has been published. It's been published in Mindscape magazine and in the People's Disclosure. I'll try and find a couple of links and leave them there for you so you can read it. But it was a very profound experience, and it was a confirmation for what I was learning at the time, and it did change my life. So there's a lot of things in amongst all the negativity, and that's what the purpose of this, now making this video today, is to show you that you can look at the negativity. You have to hold on to the positive truth, the bigger picture that we're living in right now, and understand and find your own power and energy from the truth, from the knowledge that's here today, and don't let the horror and the negativity distract you from the equal power of the positivity, and hold on to that positivity and stand by the law. Wherever there's confusion, stand by the law. Stand by universal law of abundance and compassion. Show understanding, show compassion. Be balanced, be lawful, be caring. Be strong and brave. Face the reality of what we have to deal with. You can't clean a house up by wearing a blindfold. You have got to look at what you're doing. And we do have to clean this planet up. And we don't need this mass cull that they're planning. It does threaten extinction of humanity, not just humanity and life on Earth. Fukushima needs immediate attention. Immediate. We have to stop it. We cannot leave it running away for another 100 years, which is what they're saying now. We have to abolish nuclear power in its present form. We have to get sane and sensible. Because otherwise, David Attenborough is right. Humanity is a blight on the earth. If we are prepared to allow the corporations to destroy the planet in our name just because they pay us a wage that we can pay our mortgage. And mortgage, by the way, is French for death grip. Get out of those death grips. So, I do urge people, this election coming up, I really don't think there should be a general election right now, because there's too many things going on in the world and in Britain, too many serious things, and with this level, as I say, of internal tyranny, stroke, treason, really, you can't vote for anybody. Nobody can stand for election into a corrupt parliament. That is to be an agent of treason, and actually to vote for them is to be complicit in treason. And that is how it legally stands. It is legally our lawful duty to stand up against internal tyranny. And so, I do ask you to be part of the tsunami, not to turn up in violence and rioting. The children do not need that. That's what we want to stop. We don't want a crazed, rioting society. Britain has been through all of that. We've been through too much, just to allow everything to descend into chaos. And that is not protecting the children. The children are even more vulnerable in that situation. So now we need to stand together, and stand together lawfully, and demand that the law be actually employed, utilised, and that the police arrest Parliament, suspend the judiciary. We do have the British Constitution Group, which are perfectly set up to act as an interim government and to take part in an internal investigation into what's been going on in Britain, and even to suspend the Bank of England and create our own interim economy, because of the level of corruption that the Bank of England's been taking part in, and the great swindling of the British public that's going on. And all these things can be dealt with legally and lawfully. And no, there's no court in this society or judge in this system that is going to, in the usual way, deal with the serious problems. In fact, they've all been conspiring to keep those problems hidden and buried or ignored. We're going to have to do it. We are going to have to be the law, and we're going to have to establish our own systems and our own way of life. And we can do that lawfully, and EU law actually does support us. And I know a lot of people are against our inclusion into Europe, and I'm not really surprised, because the British government has conspired to make sure that British people we do all the paying out, but we don't get many of the benefits, because they've actually conspired to make sure that a lot of things that the EU that gives to its other countries, such as its laws and rights, British people, they've put clauses so British people can't have them. But actually, those clauses are illegal, and they do not hold water. So, think again, British authorities. Just because you put your little clauses in, it doesn't mean to say that you stand outside EU child protection laws. And, EU law is, I've looked through it, and it's good. It's there to protect people. It's not there to control people, and it does actually allow people to have a good life in their own independent nations, and that's good. But obviously, like everything else, the EU has been infiltrated by corporate sources, ambitions, and all their corruptions. And as I say, the paedophiles are a big supporter, because the paedophiles do depend on a lot of poor people. Children. They take the children off poor people. The Hampstead children talk about babies being brought in from all over the world, from women who can't afford to look after their children. Poverty is it feeds that culture. And we have to say no to it. No, no, no. No poverty. No poverty. End it. End it. And there are not too many people. Value every person here. It's special. You're important. You are a star. And, shine. Shine. Be your star. And I just wish you all well. And I hope to see a lot of people standing peacefully together at this demonstration on the 11th of April, and I really hope that especially the professional people of Britain, the professional people are really, we do depend so much on you now to use your powers and your profession to speak out, read the witness statements in this case, because this case, the Hampstead case, is a prime example of what has been going on, and there are so many cases that I couldn't even list here, but so many parents and children suffering and who have suffered with the illegalities of the family courts and the levels of paedophilia within every British authority. I really do appeal to the professional people to please help us establish the law, let Britain, free ourselves from the shackles of this illegal debt, and for us to live with sense, because life has to make sense. And when you look into Ubuntu, and I do recommend you go to the home and you listen to Mike and Tellinger's videos, support him. If you giving any charity to Africa at the moment, forget it. Give to South Africa Ubuntu. All the details are here. You can donate here. But if you care about Africa, do donate and support Ubuntu Britain as well. And so, again, I'll say goodbye and wish you all the best and love to all.